Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Minister, you're very welcome to the House. Let me start by congratulating you, Prime Minister Sunak, and the European Union on the wonderful achievement yesterday and the measured responses there have been since, which are vitally important at a time like this, that we stall the horses if you want, and let's not annoy anybody at this stage. Give everybody time and space to absorb what wonderful achievement has been made, and I congratulate you, as the Chairman has, in your own work on this. Sticking with Northern Ireland for a moment, Taoiseach, myself and Deputy Berry and others in the Oireachtas are working with a group called MAPS, which is Military and Police Support Group in Omagh. Now, since the announcement of the inquiry into the Omagh bombing, there has been an inordinate number of people who have come forward looking for counselling. These would be members of the security forces generally. And MAPS has found itself in a situation where it is MAPS, M-A-P-S, they're completely overwhelmed by demands for support and counselling services. And this is a cross-border issue. There are people on the southern side of the border who are also using this service and the services of Brook House. And I don't want to put you on the spot today, but I'm wondering if the Ireland Fund, if the fund that's available to you, the Shared Ireland Fund, if some emergency funding could be made available to help this worthy initiative. My own view is that the Omagh inquiry, while something in that line has to take place. There is no hierarchy in atrocities. There is no hierarchy in things that happened in Northern Ireland, and to single out Omagh has now placed an awful lot of people into serious, I suppose, stress and mental illness problems. So if you might address that, I'd appreciate it. Just dealing with the vexed issue of equality, of neutrality. I believe that Ireland is best described in international terms as a non-aligned country. You will know yourself, Taoiseach, that there are 120 countries who are part of the non-aligned group. It was established in 1981, and I believe the principles underpinning non-alignment are fully consistent with Ireland and its role in the international world. Those principles are mutual respect for each other's territories, integrity and sovereignty, mutual non-aggression, mutual non-interference in domestic affairs, equality and mutual benefit, peaceful coexistence. And I'm wondering, it's in existence since 1961. Why has Ireland not signed up to the non-aligned grouping? I think it's ideally suited to us. Now, my colleague just spoke about a referendum to enshrine neutrality into our constitution. And while that may be attractive for some people, it is deeply unattractive where you tie a country's hands at the outset in a constitutional situation where they are prohibited from engaging in alignments of any sort. Now, in Tallinn this year, Tallinn 22, where we discussed all things to do with cyber and cyber security, there is no border in the cyber world. And to tie ourselves into a situation that we cannot align with like-minded countries to defend not just our country and its economy, but our foreign direct investment attractiveness would be, to my mind, absolute nonsense. It would be deeply, deeply worrying as to the future of this country if we tie a government's hands that they are not free to react. And if you feel comfortable dealing with that today, I'd be interested in hearing your views. Taoiseach, we had, speaking of sanctions, we had a situation where 10 aircraft were sold to Russia, 10 aircraft owned by an Irish leasing company. I do know from media reports that neither your department, the Central Bank, nor the Enterprise, Trade and Employment were contacted with respect to the sale of those aircraft. Can you tell me if there has been any follow-up to establish by what right these aircraft were just sold on the market, and how does that fit into the sanctions regime. Finally, the issue of peacekeeping. We have a proud record in peacekeeping, and sadly our defence forces is in a very poor state at the moment. The withdrawal of troops from Golan Heights, I think we have no choice. Brigadier General Gerard Craughwell gave an example on Sunday of what's required to man each one of or to provide troops in each one of the areas that we're operating in. So you take the number that are on the ground and you multiply it by 3, because you have one group getting ready, one group serving, and one group recovering when they come home. So you must always have that sort of numbers available. Now, I have to say, in my entire time in the Oireachtas, which is coming up on 9 years, the first positive statement that has been made was made by you in the last few weeks with respect to housing for members of the Defence Forces. There are a couple of things outstanding there, and I know you're not here on defence today, but it falls into our peacekeeping role, and that is the Working Time Directive, the 2013 pension and allowances. Unless we fix those things, you're going to find yourself in a situation where we're not going to be able to fulfil peacekeeping missions. Right now we're in a situation where what was once voluntary is now becoming a detailed duty, and that is particularly difficult, particularly where people are getting very short notice that a hole in the management structure has not been filled. 600 and odd non-commissioned officer vacancies is just unacceptable in my view, and it eats into our role in peacekeeping, a role that I know you're proud of. I know the chairman is extremely proud of it, and and other members of this committee are very proud of our Blue Beret and those who have served with European forces in the cause of peace. And we may find ourselves in the not too distant future, I hope, in a peacekeeping role in Europe as the Ukrainian war, I would hope, draws to an end. And my final question is on the issue of arms for Ukraine. I know we're providing non-lethal military equipment, which the moment we did away with any neutrality, and I think you yourself have said we're not neutral in the case of Ukraine. Ukraine is not looking for offensive weapons from us, but they are looking for defensive weapons, weapons that can be used to shoot rockets out of the sky, weapons that can be used to take out a tank. Those are defensive weapons and are there to save human life, not to take human life away. So I wonder, would you go back and look at the defensive side of what weaponry we have and how that might be used to assist Ukraine and stop the slaughter of people? I'll leave it at that, Chairman.
Senator Craughwell, I think we dealt with the Windsor Agreement. I think on that issue of maps and counselling, there's two avenues. There's the reconciliation fund that we operate in the Department of Foreign Affairs, and perhaps I'll ask officials to engage with you. And the Shared Island Fund announced a call recently to civil organisations. About $2.5 million was made available in that call, which is for organisations to make a submission to seek funding. And it's right across the full spectrum of society, community supporting, voluntary, and so on like that. Maybe that's one potential route, or the reconciliation. There's two routes there for you to pursue. And if you can I'd invite you, or the organisations on a cross-border basis or whatever, if they can get a proposal together with a set organisation, we'll certainly take on board what you've said. I think I dealt with the neutrality issue. I'd like to think, have I?
Yeah, I think if I might punish the neutrality issue, you've actually put it in perspective here today. The days of worrying about land wars and tanks and guns and whatever else, we're living in a whole new world. 75% of our SMEs have been hit by cyber attacks, and that's right across the European Union. There's a whole new world out there, and neutrality is too simple a word to encompass the challenges ahead for aligning on different issues, and certainly in cyberspace we have no choice but to align with like-minded countries against a common enemy.
Okay, I'm
just say on
very keen to Tony to respond, but I know that Catherine has to leave.
Okay. So very quickly on NAM, non-aligned movement. Yeah. All members currently are in the developing world, and that has not always been the focus and that has always been the focus of membership. The only country in Europe that's currently a member is Belarus. And many of the foreign policy positions taken by the NEM over the years do not necessarily correspond to Ireland's foreign policy priorities. We do work in a constructive way with them, however.